Wow, so Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts just cannot seem to escape the drama recently as the media continues to pump out narratives criticizing Hurts for a multitude of reasons, whether it be his play down the stretch of last season or his leadership. So is Hurts just being hated on, or do the Eagles actually have a real problem with QB1? Also, Birds right tackle Lane Johnson just made some exciting comments about Saquon Barkley that should be scary for the league, while he also expressed confidence that the Eagles will bounce back this upcoming season. So we're going to talk about all that and more in this video today, and we won't waste any time. Let's get straight into it. Alright, so let's start off with a really interesting story that just came out that actually dates back to the 2012 NFL Draft. As during an episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast, Birds reporter Zach Berman said that the Eagles actually made a serious attempt to move up in that draft to select Andrew Luck.
I do know during that period, the Eagles were looking at a number of big-name quarterbacks. And even in the draft, one thing I also know is they've, now this isn't like a bold take, but they had a really high grade on Andrew Luck. They tried maniacally to trade up that year. Obviously, Indianapolis wasn't moving off that pick, but I think they were hoping that the Colts would bring Peyton back,
right,
and they could trade for the number one pick.
Yeah.
Now, this is kind of interesting and honestly a little bit crazy to think about, just considering the fact that the Birds had just signed Michael Vick to a big contract not long before that, and also just imagining what Andrew Luck could have looked like with that Eagles offense under Andy Reid and how that could have changed the Eagles and Luck's future. I mean, would Luck still be playing if he was protected by the Eagles offensive line? And also, would the Eagles even have a Super Bowl if that happened? Just considering the fact that Nick Foles was drafted a year later in the third round, and of course, we all know that after starting for a bit, then leaving and coming back to Philly as a backup, he led the Eagles to their one and only Super Bowl title in franchise history. Speaking of which, a set of statistics actually has recently come to light showcasing just how impressive Eagles quarterbacks have been in the Super Bowl recently, as it shows that none other than Nick Foles had the highest graded performance of any QB in Super Bowl history according to PFF with a 92.3 grade, and right behind him is Jalen Hurts with a 92.2 grade. And honestly, I think that this is the perfect time to remember this because there's just been so much criticism of Hurts recently, and trust me, we're going to get into all that in just a minute, but we just can't forget what Jalen was able to do on the biggest stage imaginable and really just all year in 2022. I mean, this guy was so good that he would have won MVP if he didn't get hurt at the end of that season and missed 2 games, and he had his peers and the players around the league rank him as the 3rd best player in the entire NFL, and he was so incredible in the Super Bowl that he had the man who beat him out for MVP and in the Super Bowl in Patrick Mahomes saying Hurts silenced the doubters with his performance in the big game, and he expects to face him again in big games as their careers move forward. And he also had Chiefs defensive tackle Chris Jones saying that he had the best performance he's ever seen by a quarterback in Super Bowl history. But apparently, everyone just wants to act like none of that ever happened. With the most recent example of Hurts' criticism being some comments coming from First Things First host Nick Wright, who said this about him.
I do think it's a legitimate conversation of, do we know Jalen Hurts is good? I think that it and by
good?
Yes, and are we certain Jalen Hurts is a top 15 quarterback in the league? I think, and that's average. There's only 32. So are we certain? By good, I mean better than the average league starter. Are we certain of that? And so here's why I think it's a fair question. Because you start with, and I try to be fair, Wilds isn't here to remind everyone, but they do call me Mr. Consistency. There is an element of the situation stuff that I don't think hold against, but use in my grading of Brock Purdy must apply here.
Hold against.
In that case, other than San Francisco, is there a better situation for a quarterback?
Come on, man. Like, are we being serious at this point? I mean, look, I cannot deny the fact that Jalen has had a great supporting cast around him for the past couple seasons. That's just a fact. But at the same time, I mean, there's no argument to be made that he's not a top 15 quarterback in the league. Like, just look at what Jalen has accomplished, whether it be team success or individual success. I mean, he's made the playoffs in 3 years as a starter, with one of those years being with a brand new first-year head coach and coaching staff, and a team that many thought was only going to win around 4 to 6 games. And then in the next year, he put up MVP caliber numbers and almost won the award, putting up over 4,000 total yards and 35 total touchdowns while posting a passer rating over 100, and believe it or not, being one of the best pocket passers in the league statistically, ranking 1st in completion percentage from the pocket, 2nd in touchdown to interception ratio from the pocket, and 1st in passer rating from the pocket. All that while also leading the Eagles to the number 1 seed in the NFC and only losing 1 regular season game in the process. And then of course, he had an all-time all-time performance in the Super Bowl, and then even in this past year with the terrible offensive coaching and scheme, and while also dealing with apparent nagging injuries during the whole season, he was still first in MVP odds through week 12, and he finished the season second in completion percentage over expected, meaning that a lot of the throws that Hurts was making were contested or in very tight windows, but he was still able to find ways to complete passes consistently. And over the past 3 years, Hurts has been 27-9 during the regular season. But yeah, all because of a rough ending to the season, let's just all pretend like Jalen Hurts stinks. I mean, it honestly does not make any sense. I mean, just look here at Jalen Hurts' career numbers through 51 starts compared to Joe Burrow's. Now, everyone considers Burrow to be a top 3 to 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think it'd probably be hard to find someone who doesn't think that. Yet, when you look at their numbers, they are very similar. Now, they play differently, but the production and success are on the same level. Yet, we have people like Nick Wright questioning whether Jalen is a top 15 QB or not. It's honestly just crazy to me. Now, you guys can let me know where you think Jalen Hurts ranks among the NFL's top quarterbacks down in the comments below. I would say, personally, after last season and just trying to be unbiased, he's probably somewhere in like the 5, 6, 7, 8 range, but what do you guys think? But now moving on, the Jalen Hurts drama does not end there, as the big headline that everyone wants to talk about recently is this whole situation surrounding Jalen Hurts and head coach Nick Sirianni. Now, if you haven't been following it, basically, this drama all started back at the end of minicamp because of an answer that Jalen Hurts gave to a question about Nick Sirianni's willingness to let Kellen Moore make changes to the offense, to which Jalen said this.
I mean, it's a great question. I don't know that I know the answer to it.
What have you seen? What have you seen from him as far as doing that?
I think he's just, he's been great, and the messages he's delivering to the team. He's trying to be very intentional in what he's saying, and yeah.
So there, kind of just a typical Jalen Hurts answer. I mean, maybe it was a little bit less than usual. He honestly just didn't really say much of anything at all. I mean, maybe he could have thought of something and said a little bit more, but I honestly just didn't think anything of it when I first listened to the press conference, and I don't know if many people really did, but apparently to some people, and specifically certain people in the media, this apparently means that Jalen Hurts hates Nick Sirianni and they don't have a good relationship or something like that. And while I've consistently said that I think people are just reading into this too much, there's still a lot of people that seem to have a problem with Jalen's answer for one reason or another, with the most recent one being former Eagles quarterback and now media member Ron Jaworski, as he recently went on WIP where he said this about Hurts.
Obviously, Jaws is kind of hanging out there the most right now. Is the last comment, or not the last comment, but the comment from Jalen near the end of the OTA when he said what he said about Nick Sirianni. You know how it's complicated, face of a franchise quarterback. You were that. You were the face of the franchise and the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, so it's not easy to answer all the questions. I thought that one was a pretty easy question. When you first heard it, what was your reaction?
Yeah, quite honestly, I was disappointed. I'm a great fan of Jalen Hurts and his ability, but I think one thing he's got to get better at is his leadership skills and ability to communicate his leadership skills. And I thought that was a great opportune time to say, hey, we made changes in the offseason. Man, I'm excited for Nick Sirianni. We made a lot of changes. If that would have been me, and you alluded to my career and the way I handle myself, I would have shown excitement at that point. That last year is history. I've learned from last year, and man, you now see a changed Jalen Hurts. I did not see that change. I saw the kind of quiet demeanor that he normally shows. And I know you can't change his zebra stripes. I'm not saying that because I know who Jalen is. I know what he is. I know he's a terrific athlete and a terrific person. But as a leader of a football team, I think he has to take it up a notch in his enthusiasm and passion for his teammates and the coaching staff.
Now, first off, I gotta make it clear that I don't have any issue with Jaws and I respect what he did for this franchise, but at the same time, I just don't really agree with what he said. I mean, I get Jaws has the perspective of being the franchise quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, and I clearly don't, so I see why he would say, well, Jalen needs to just be more outspoken there and express more confidence in his head coach and team, because that's what Jaworski himself would have done, but like he even said there at the end, that's just not who Jalen is. He's typically more quiet and non-expressive, especially when talking to the media, and I just don't understand this thing where everyone's now questioning Hurts' leadership, because that was never even thought of as an issue before the end of this past season. In fact, it was considered one of Hurts' best strengths through college, from getting benched in the national championship all the way to the NFL, where he eventually led his team to the Super Bowl. And guess what? When he and the Eagles did get to the Super Bowl, there was nobody saying anything even remotely negative about Hurts and his leadership, and it only came into question when things went wrong and they started losing at the end of this past year. So personally, I do not think that Jalen needs to change the way he leads at all. We've seen him be expressive with his teammates when the time is right before, and honestly, just winning cures everything. Like, if the Eagles come out and start the season this year hot and they win games convincingly, then nobody's going to be saying anything negative about Hurts and his leadership. But that being said, what do you guys think? Give me all your thoughts on this Jalen Hurts drama down in the comment section below. But now, moving on here to something much more positive, Eagles right tackle Lane Johnson was actually just on the Insiders on NFL Network on Monday, where he talked about a lot of things, including how he's feeling about the Eagles' upcoming season after the collapse of last year, and he expressed a lot of confidence, saying, quote, "We have a lot of new faces, a lot of turnover, but I felt comfortable with the way we drafted, got some great players, and really, when you look at our roster, we have a lot of size. Obviously, we have to go prove things and are eager to do so, but when you just look at the guys walking around the building, we've got size, we've got speed, and guys willing to work. Every year's different. I wish I had the answers to why the second half of the season went the way it did. It was something that just went by so fast, and I know after it wasn't a problem, but I'm looking forward obviously to this new offense under Kellen Moore. Gonna be some things changed up for us up front. Excited, man. 12th year, crazy how fast it goes by." So I think Lane pretty much put that perfectly. You know, last year's last year, for whatever reason, things just fell apart at the end of the season. And I've of course talked about all those reasons a lot on this channel previously, but things are different this year. You know, obviously you lost some incredibly important guys in the offseason, but they also brought in a ton of great players. And arguably the most important things are the changes to the coaching staff, which should really benefit the team as a whole. So just like Lane seems to be, I am very optimistic about the Eagles this upcoming season. And one reason for that is the Eagles' addition of Saquon Barkley. And Lane was actually asked about this as well, and he responded by making some really exciting comments about the star running back that should scare the rest of the league, as he said, quote, "Once you see him, you'll never forget. Just a physically imposing guy. I think he walks around 230 pounds. He's ultra competitive. When you see what he can do at the running back position, and we can flex him out at receiver, he can go. I mean, it's really unbelievable. I never thought he would be playing for us, but here it is. I know that he's excited. We're definitely excited up front. I think he's poised for a big, big year." Now, I've talked about Saquon and the impact that I and apparently other NFL teams think he's going to have on the Eagles offense extensively in some of my more recent videos, so you can go check those out after this video if you want to. But for Lane to say this, that just only adds on to the excitement for what Saquon could look like in this Eagles offense alongside the insane weapons they got and just behind that great offensive line. And any praise coming from an all-pro and future Hall of Fame player like Lane just has to be noted. And overall, I just cannot wait to watch Saquon run behind Lane and the Eagles' great offensive line and just the Eagles offense as a whole this season. Now, I want to be continuing to cover the Eagles throughout the rest of the summer and then moving into training camp and of course the start of the regular season. So if you don't want to miss any of that, make sure you subscribe and also really, really importantly, turn on those notifications so you are notified instantly when one of these videos is uploaded. And also, while you're at it, make sure you drop a like to show some support. If you did enjoy this video, it really does help me out a ton. So make sure you do that. And also leave a comment down below just regarding anything else that I talked about in this video. And if you want to watch another Eagles video going over why the Eagles offense could be taken to the next level this season, you can check this out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.